The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a giant metal flower. Station 7 was the largest meeting place in the galaxy. Ships from 100 different worlds came here to trade, to talk, and sometimes to fight. Today, it was full of aliens from every corner of known space. They had all come for the Galactic Trade Summit. Park stood at the window of her small room and watched the ships arrive. She was a lieutenant in Earth's diplomatic corps, which meant her job was to smile, shake hands, and make friends for humanity. She was good at her job, but today would be different. Today would be dangerous. She was not a tall woman. By Earth standards, she was average. But here, surrounded by aliens who stood 7, 8, even 9 feet tall, she looked like a child. Her black hair was tied back in a neat bun. Her uniform was clean and pressed. She looked calm, but inside her chest, her heart was beating fast. A knock came at her door. She turned and said, "Come in." The door slid open and Admiral walked inside. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in space for 30 years, and he had seen things that would make most people run home to Earth. But he was still here, still fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. "You read the briefing?" he asked. Nodded. The Dominion, warrior species, 8 feet tall, armored skin, crushing grip strength. She paused, and they like to break bones during handshakes. The Admiral did not smile. 2 delegates are in the medical bay right now, shattered arms. The warlord did it during the greeting ceremony yesterday. He calls it a tradition. He spat the word like it tasted bad. He calls it establishing dominance. Had seen the medical reports. They were a peaceful species, thin and fragile. They had no chance against strength. Nobody stopped the attacks because, technically, they were following their own customs. Galactic law protected cultural traditions, even cruel ones. "What about us?" asked. "Humans shake hands too." "That's the problem." The Admiral sat down on her bed, suddenly looking very old. "Warlord has announced that he will honor human customs at tonight's opening ceremony. He's going to shake hands with our representative." He looked up at her. "That's you, Lieutenant." Felt her stomach drop, but she kept her face still. "He wants to crush my hand in front of everyone, send a message that humans are weak." "Yes. And if I refuse the handshake?" "Then we look afraid. We look weak anyway. The smaller species are watching us. They want to know if humanity will stand up to bullies or run away." The Admiral stood up and walked to the window. "We're new out here. We've only been in space for 60 years. These aliens have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They think we're nothing, children playing at being adults." Joined him at the window. Outside, a warship was docking. It was huge and ugly, covered in weapons and armor. It looked like a fist made of metal. "What do you want me to do, sir?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want you to shake his hand." Blinked, "Sir. You grew up on 442b, heavy gravity colony. Your bones are 30% denser than baseline human. You competed in zero-G wrestling for 6 years." He turned to look at her. "And you scored higher in hand-to-hand combat than anyone in your class at the academy." Understood now. She had been chosen for this mission on purpose. Not because she was a good diplomat, but because she was strong. Stronger than she looked. "You want me to fight back," she said. "I want you to win." The Admiral put his hand on her shoulder. "These aliens think strength is everything. Fine. Let's show them what human strength looks like." After the Admiral left, sat alone in her room and thought about what he had asked her to do. She was not afraid of pain. She had broken bones before. Growing up on a heavy gravity world meant that every day was a fight against the planet itself. Running, jumping, even walking required more effort than on Earth. By the time she was 10 years old, her muscles were like steel cables and her bones were like stone. But this was different. This was not just about her. This was about all of humanity. If she failed, if she screamed and fell to her knees, then every human in the galaxy would be seen as prey. The unspecies like them would never respect Earth. They would push and push until humanity had nothing left. She opened her computer and pulled up the intelligence files on anatomy. Their exoskeleton was tough but not unbreakable. Their joints were actually weaker than human joints because they relied on external armor instead of internal flexibility. If she could find the right angle, the right pressure point, she could turn their own strength against them. She studied for hours. She practiced grip techniques until her hands ached. She visualized the confrontation over and over in her mind. When the time came, she would be ready. That evening walked into the grand hall of Station 7. The room was enormous, filled with hundreds of aliens of every shape and size. Some floated in the air. Some crawled on the walls. Some stood on 2 legs like humans, and some stood on 6 or 8. The noise was incredible, a mix of languages and sounds that her translator struggled to process. She found her table near the center of the room. Ensign Lee was already there, looking nervous. He was young, barely 22, and this was his first major diplomatic mission. His hands were shaking as he poured water into glasses. "Lieutenant," he said, standing up quickly, "I heard what's happening. Are you sure about this?" Sat down and smiled at him. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm going to do it anyway." Across the room, she saw the delegation arrive. They were massive, their armored bodies gleaming under the lights. At their head walked Warlord. He was the largest of them all, nearly 9 feet tall, with claws that looked like they could tear through metal. His eyes scanned the room until they found the human table. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Smiled back. The ceremony was about to begin. The opening ceremony began with speeches. Leaders from different worlds stood at the central platform and talked about peace, trade, and cooperation. Listened to the translations in her earpiece, but her mind was somewhere else. She was watching. The warlord sat at his table like a king on a throne. His soldiers stood behind him, their arms crossed over their armored chests. Every few minutes would look across the room at and grin. He was enjoying this. He was looking forward to breaking her. Leaned close to her. "Maybe we can skip the greeting part. Say you're sick or something." Shook her head. He would just find another way, another time, better to face it now. The speeches ended and the greeting ceremony began. This was the tradition at every summit. Representatives from each species would walk around the room and greet the others according to their customs. Some species bowed. Some touched foreheads. Some made strange sounds or exchanged gifts. Humans shook hands. Stood up and straightened her uniform. She could feel the eyes of the room turning toward her. Word had spread quickly about what planned to do. Everyone wanted to watch. For most of them, it would be entertainment. For some, it might be the most important moment of the summit. Ambassador Myra appeared at her side. The senior diplomat was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been negotiating with aliens since before was born. "You don't have to do this," the ambassador said quietly. "Yes, I do." Ambassador studied her face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Then do it well." She stepped back and let walk forward alone. The room grew quiet as approached the center, was already there waiting for her. Up close, he was even more terrifying than she had expected. His body was covered in thick plates of natural armor, dark red like dried blood. His eyes were yellow and cold. His hands were huge, each finger ending in a curved claw. "The human," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. His translator turned his words into English, but the contempt came through clearly. "Such a small thing. I have eaten creatures larger than you." Laughter came from the table. A few other aliens joined in. The delegates, their arms still wrapped in healing bandages, watched with fear in their eyes. Stopped 2 meters away from him. "I am Lieutenant Park of Earth," she said. "I greet you in the human way." She extended her hand. Looked down at it like she had offered him an insect. "This is your greeting. You reach out your weak little limb and wait for me to crush it." He laughed again. Your species is even more foolish than I thought. It's meant to show trust, said calmly. Two people cannot hold weapons while shaking hands. It shows we come in peace. Peace, spat the word. Peace is what the weak beg for. The strong do not need peace. The strong take what they want. He stepped closer, towering over her. But I will honor your tradition, little human. I will shake your hand. He reached out and grabbed her hand in his massive grip. His claws wrapped around her fingers, around her palm, around her wrist. His entire hand disappeared inside his. The room held its breath. Began to squeeze. Could feel the pressure building, pushing against her bones. It was like putting her hand inside a machine. The force was incredible, more than she had expected. Pain shot up her arm, bright and sharp. But she did not scream. She did not fall. She stood straight and looked up into the warlord's yellow eyes. And then she squeezed back. Blinked, something changed in his face. The confident grin faded slightly. He squeezed harder too. Was watching from the human table, his hands gripping the edge so hard that his knuckles were white. He knew what the aliens did not know. He knew where it came from. 442b was a heavy world. The gravity there was 1.5 times stronger than Earth. Children on that planet grew up carrying extra weight with every step. Their muscles developed differently. Their bones grew thicker, denser, harder. Adults from 442b could lift weights that would break the backs of normal humans. Had spent the first 18 years of her life on that world. Every day was a workout. Every step was training. By the time she left for Earth, she was stronger than most men twice her size. But strength alone was not enough. They were stronger than any human. Their grip could crush metal, could not beat with pure force. So she used something else. She used knowledge. The intelligence files had shown her exactly where the joints were weakest. Their armor was thick on the outside, but thin near the joints where they needed flexibility. The wrist was especially vulnerable. The bones there were smaller, less protected, and when pressure was applied at exactly the right angle, they would break like dry sticks. Shifted her grip slightly. She moved her thumb to a specific point on his wrist. She pressed. The warlord's eyes went wide. For the first time, she saw fear in them. "What are you doing?" he growled. Smiled, shaking your hand. She kept pressing. Her grip was like iron now, focused on that single weak point. Tried to pull away, but she held on tight. He tried to squeeze harder, but the angle was wrong now. His own strength was working against him. The other aliens watched in shock. This was not what they had expected. The small human woman was not screaming. She was not falling to her knees. She was standing there, calm and steady, while the mighty warlord struggled to escape her grip. "Let go," roared. "No," said, "you started this. I'm going to finish it." She thought about the delegates with their broken arms. She thought about every species in the galaxy that they had bullied and hurt. She thought about humanity, young and small and new to the stars. And she squeezed with everything she had. The grand hall was completely silent. Every alien in the room was watching. They had come expecting to see a small human woman broken and humiliated. Instead, they were seeing something that should have been impossible. Was struggling. His face was twisted with effort and pain. His massive body shook as he tried to pull his hand free from the grip of a creature less than half his size. But he could not escape. Held him like a trap, her fingers locked around his wrist. "This cannot be," one of the soldiers whispered. "She is just a human." The pain in his hand was terrible. Her muscles burned. Her bones felt like they were about to crack, but she had learned long ago how to push through pain. On 442b, pain was just part of daily life. You learn to ignore it or you learn to stay in bed forever. She thought about her father. He had worked in the mines on that heavy world, digging ore out of rock with his bare hands. Every night he came home exhausted, his body broken by the endless weight of gravity. But he never complained. He used to say that pain was just weakness leaving the body. Understood that now. She understood it better than ever could. On Earth, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, we have a saying, never mistake kindness for weakness. Roared and tried a new tactic. Instead of pulling away, he pushed forward. He swung his other arm toward her head, claws extended, ready to tear her face apart. It was a move born of desperation and rage, but had been waiting for it. She dropped her weight and stepped to the side. At the same time, she twisted his arm and used his own momentum against him. This was not brute force. This was judo, an ancient earth martial art that she had studied for years. The principle was simple: use your enemy's strength to defeat them. Stumbled forward off balance. His massive body suddenly felt clumsy and slow. He tried to catch himself, but was already moving. She stepped behind him and applied pressure to his elbow joint, forcing his arm into an unnatural position. The sound it made was loud and wet, like a branch breaking under snow. Screamed. The hall erupted in chaos. Soldiers rushed forward, but the station's security drones dropped from the ceiling and blocked their path. Weapons were not allowed at the summit. Fighting outside of official challenges was forbidden. The drones would stop any attack before it started. Released and stepped back. The warlord fell to his knees, clutching his arm. His wrist was bent at a strange angle, the armor plates around it cracked and broken. Dark blood seeped through the gaps. For a long moment nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then Ambassador Myra stood up from the human table. Her face was calm, but her eyes were burning with something fierce. Pride, maybe, or triumph. The Dominion offered a challenge, she said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. Lieutenant Park accepted it. The challenge is complete. Looked up at with hatred in his yellow eyes. You broke my arm, he growled. You will pay for this. The Dominion will have its revenge. Looked down at him. She did not feel victorious. She did not feel proud. She felt tired and sad. Violence was never something she enjoyed, even when it was necessary. You try to break me first, she said simply. I just defended myself. You are nothing, spat. Your species is nothing. You are insects pretending to be people. Thought about that for a moment. Then she spoke again, louder this time so everyone could hear. Maybe you're right. Maybe we are small. Maybe we are new to the stars. But let me tell you about insects, warlord. She looked around the room at all the watching faces. Aliens of every shape and size were staring at her, waiting for her words. On Earth, there is an insect called the ant. It is tiny, smaller than your claw, but ants can carry 50 times their own weight. They can survive floods and fires and poisons that would kill creatures 1,000 times larger. They build cities underground that last for generations. And when they work together, they can bring down animals that should be able to crush them without thinking. She turned back to, humans are like ants. We are small, yes, but we are strong. We are stubborn. We do not give up. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed our whole world. We climbed out of our caves and reached for the stars. And now we are here, standing among species that have been in space for 1,000 generations. She knelt down until her face was close to his. You think you can break us with a handshake? You think you can scare us with threats? Warlord, we have been through worse than you can imagine. We are still here. We will always be here. She stood up and walked back toward her table. The crowd parted to let her through. Nobody tried to stop her. Nobody said a word. Was standing at the human table, his mouth hanging open. He had never seen anything like this. He had heard stories about humans from heavy gravity worlds, about their strength and endurance, but seeing it in person was different. It was like watching a fairy tale come to life. Sat down heavily in her chair. Now that the adrenaline was fatting, she could feel her hand throbbing with pain. Several small bones were probably broken. She would need medical attention soon. But first, there was something she needed to do. She looked across the room at the delegates. They were staring at her with wide eyes, their thin bodies trembling. But they were not trembling with fear. They were trembling with hope. Nodded at them, just a small movement but enough. One of them raised a bandaged arm and began to clap. The sound was soft at first, barely audible, but then another joined in, and another. Soon the whole delegation was applauding. Other species began to join them. Small species who had been bullied by them for centuries. Species who had never dared to fight back. They clapped and cheered and stamped their feet, making a noise that filled the entire hall. Ambassador sat down next to and put a hand on her shoulder. "Well done, Lieutenant," she said quietly. "Well done." Medical Bay on Station 7 was busy that night. Sat on a white bed while a robotic arm scanned her hand. The machine made soft beeping sounds as it worked, showing images of her bones on a screen above her head. 3 small fractures, the medical computer announced. Significant muscle strain, minor ligament damage, treatment time, approximately 4 hours with accelerated healing. Nodded and leaned back against the pillow. 4 hours was nothing. She had expected worse. The grip could crush metal. Getting away with only 3 small fractures felt like a victory. The door opened and Admiral walked in. He looked different than he had that morning. The tired lines around his eyes were still there, but there was something new in his face, something like relief. "How's the hand?" he asked. "It hurts," admitted, "but it still works, that's what matters." The Admiral pulled up a chair and sat down next to her bed. For a long moment he was quiet. He just sat there, looking at her hand wrapped in the healing device. "I watched the recording," he finally said. "The whole thing, I watched it 5 times. Did not know what to say, so she said nothing. When grabbed your hand, I thought it was over. I thought we had made a terrible mistake." He shook his head slowly. "Then you started fighting back, and I realized that I had no idea who you really were." "I'm just a soldier, sir. I followed orders." "No," the Admiral leaned forward. "You're more than that. What you did in that hall was not just about following orders. You stood up for humanity. You showed the entire galaxy what we're made of." He paused. "The diplomatic channels have been going crazy for the last 3 hours. Every small species at the summit wants to talk to us. They want to know if humans will protect them from bullies like the..." Thought about the delegates clapping with their broken arms. She thought about all the other small species who had watched her face down. They had been afraid for so long, afraid to speak up, afraid to fight back. "What about the?" she asked. "Are they angry?" The Admiral smiled grimly. "Very angry. They've filed 14 formal complaints with the Galactic Council. They're claiming that you violated cultural traditions, used illegal combat techniques, and caused permanent injury to a diplomatic representative." "Will anything happen?" "No, the Council reviewed the recording. You accepted a challenge according to human customs. You defended yourself when tried to attack you. Everything you did was legal." The smile grew wider. "They are used to being the biggest and the strongest. They don't know what to do when someone fights back." There was a knock at the door. Poked his head inside, looking nervous. "Sorry to interrupt, sir, but Ambassador wanted me to deliver this." He walked in and handed a tablet to the Admiral. "It's the preliminary report from Earth Command." Admiral read the screen, his eyebrows rising higher and higher. When he finished, he let out a low whistle. "What does it say?" asked. 3 neutral systems have requested immediate diplomatic talks with Earth. The Confederation wants to discuss a mutual defense pact, and the Galactic News Network wants to interview the human woman who defeated a warlord with her bare hands. He lowered the tablet. "You're famous, Lieutenant." Closed her eyes. She did not want to be famous. She just wanted to do her job and help humanity find its place in the galaxy. But she understood that this was bigger than her now. What happened in that hall would be remembered for a long time. The story would spread to every corner of known space. Humans are dangerous. Humans are brave. Humans fight back. It was exactly the message Earth needed to send. was still standing by the door, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He looked like he wanted to say something but was afraid to speak. "What is it?" asked. "I just wanted to say, that was incredible what you did." His voice was shaking slightly. "I've never seen anything like it. You were so calm, so controlled. He was twice your size and you didn't even blink." Thought about what to say. The truth was, she had been terrified. Her heart had been pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. But fear was not something you showed to your enemy. Fear was something you locked away and dealt with later. "I was scared," she admitted. "But I did it anyway. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, just the decision to act despite it." Nodded slowly, as if he was memorizing her words. The Admiral stood up and straightened his uniform. "Get some rest, Lieutenant. Tomorrow is going to be busy. Every delegation at the summit wants to meet the woman who broke the warlord." After he left, lay in the quiet medical bay and thought about the future. Everything had changed in a single moment. One handshake had rewritten humanity's story in the galaxy. She wondered what was doing right now. Probably getting his wrist repaired, just like she was getting her hand healed. They had advanced medical technology. They could probably fix his bones in a few hours. But they could not fix his reputation. They could not fix the fact that he had been defeated by a creature he considered beneath him. That shame would follow him forever. Felt a strange sadness at the thought. She did not hate They were products of their culture, just like she was a product of hers. They believed that strength was everything because that was what they had been taught. Maybe someday things would be different. Maybe someday they would learn that there were other kinds of strength. Strength of mind, strength of heart, strength of community. But that day was not today. Today they only understood one language, and had spoken it fluently. She closed her eyes and let the healing machine do its work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight, new walls to break down. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy. The rest was just details. 3 months had passed since the summit on Station 7. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody expected. Old alliances were breaking apart. New ones were forming, and at the center of it all was a single story that everyone was talking about. The story of the human who broke the warlord. Stood at the window of her new office on Earth's orbital station and watched the ships come and go. Her hand had healed completely, though sometimes she still felt a dull ache when the weather changed. A reminder of that day, a reminder of what she had done. The door chimed and she turned around. "Come in." Admiral walked in, followed by Ambassador Myra. They both looked tired but happy. There had been so many meetings in the past few months, so many negotiations, so many hands to shake, though none of them tried to crush hers anymore. "Commander Park," the Admiral said, using her new rank, "the reports are in." Commander. She was still not used to that word. The promotion had come 2 weeks after the summit, along with a new assignment. She was now the head of the Office of Relations. Her job was to meet with alien species and build bridges between their worlds and Earth. It was a big responsibility, but after what happened there was nobody better suited for it. "What do the reports say?" she asked. Ambassador smiled. "The Confederation has officially signed the Mutual Defense Pact. If anyone attacks them, Earth will help defend them. And if anyone attacks us, they will help us." Nodded. They were not strong in the traditional sense. They were small and fragile, bad at fighting. But they were brilliant scientists and engineers. Their technology was centuries ahead of human development. With their help, Earth's ships would become faster, stronger, and more advanced. "What about the other species?" 17 systems have applied for trade agreements, the Admiral said. 12 more want to discuss military cooperation, and the Galactic Council has invited Earth to send a permanent representative. Let out a slow breath. 6 months ago, humanity was nothing. a small species from a small planet, ignored by the great powers of the galaxy. Now they were being invited to the highest halls of galactic government. All because of one handshake. "There's something else," Ambassador said. Her voice became more serious. "We received word about." Stomach tightened. She had been waiting for this news, though were not the type to forget an insult. She had expected some kind of revenge, some kind of retaliation. "What happened?" "He's been removed from his position. The Dominion has officially ended their policy of dominance greetings. No more handshake challenges. No more breaking bones to establish power." The ambassador paused. "They're claiming it's a cultural reform, but we all know the real reason. They're embarrassed. The whole galaxy saw their greatest warrior lose to a human woman half his size." Walked to her desk and sat down. She thought about, somewhere in the Empire, stripped of his rank and his honor, she should have felt satisfaction. He had tried to hurt her. He had hurt so many others before her. But she only felt tired. "He was a product of his culture," she said quietly. "He did what he was taught to do. It's the culture that needs to change, not just the person." The admiral and the ambassador exchanged a look. This was why was good at her job. She did not think in terms of enemies and friends. She thought in terms of understanding and change. "Speaking of change," the admiral said, "there's someone waiting to see you. A delegation from a species called the. They're very small, barely a foot tall. For centuries, they've been treated as pets by larger species. They heard about what you did too, and they want to know if humans will recognize them as equals." "Stood up, send them in." The meeting lasted 2 hours. They were nervous at first, constantly looking at like she might step on them. But as they talked, as she listened to their stories and their hopes, they began to relax. By the end, they were laughing and making jokes. When they left, they had a promise from Earth. Humanity would recognize them as a sovereign species. Humanity would trade with them as equals. Humanity would stand up for them if anyone tried to treat them as less than people. After they were gone, sat alone in her office and thought about the future. The galaxy was a big place, full of wonders and horrors, full of species who had been fighting each other for longer than humans had existed. It would take more than one handshake to change everything. But it was a start. Her computer beeped with a new message. It was from who was now serving as her assistant. He had attached a news article from the Galactic News Network. The headline read, "Human Representative Named Most Influential Diplomat of the Year." There was a picture of standing in the Grand Hall of Station 7, her hand extended toward. The moment before everything changed. She closed the article and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were watching. Other civilizations were learning about humanity for the first time. They were hearing the story of the small woman who faced a giant and did not back down. What would they think of humans now? Did not know, but she knew what she wanted them to think. She wanted them to know that humans were not just another species fighting for survival. They were something more. They were people who believed in kindness and courage, people who stood up for the weak, people who offered their hands in friendship but would not let those hands be broken. She thought about her father again. He had worked in those mines until the day he died, his body worn out by the heavy gravity of their world. But he had never complained. He had always said that suffering was the price you paid for strength. He was right. Everything humanity had suffered, every war and plague and disaster had made them who they were, strong, stubborn, impossible to break. Flexed her hand, feeling the healed bones beneath her skin. Humanity had come to the stars, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. They came to shake hands. And they would leave standing. Always.